This is Lainey Cameron, and I am here with A.H. Kim, Ann Kim, and it's her launch week. We're actually getting her on the very week that her book came out. Hi, how's it feeling on launch week?
Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. It's such a roller coaster. The moments before the events, my heart is racing. I'm so nervous about appearing on the screen. Once I'm actually in the event itself, it's so much fun having a conversation with my conversation partners. And then afterwards, I'm just like so tired and ready to pass out. So it's been a roller coaster week, but it's great. It's fantastic. It's a dream come true.
And congratulations, the book is doing so well. I'm going to talk about some of the reviews, but I hope you're thrilled with the reception it's getting. So far, it seems like it's getting a really amazing reception.
Yeah, I was worried about it. I think all debut authors feel like, oh, maybe I'm an imposter. Maybe nobody will want to read this or somebody will think this is tripe. But yeah, so far the reviews have been really positive, and it's been really wonderful in particular to get notes from readers, not just the critics, but just like actual real readers who have read the book and said, oh my God, I love this. I was turning the pages. You kept me up all night. That's exactly what an author wants to hear.
Oh, that's awesome. And that does not surprise me. Let's talk about the reviews. But first, where are you joining us from today?
I am in San Francisco, California.
Let me put up a slide and talk a little bit about some of the reviews. And this is one by another debut author. And I liked Suzanne's review because it seemed to capture a lot of the things that I felt as I read this book, that it was gripping, had a surprise ending, and that you did a masterful job of getting us hooked to a really set of complex characters. So I thought this kind of summarized it really well, was part of why I chose Suzanne's review here. But I also noticed this week that you got a review in the Washington Post from Maureen Corrigan. And it's amazing. It talks about how it's a domestic suspense that keeps readers guessing. It talks about how she felt tirelessly sucker punched by plot revelations and lively suspense diversion. I mean, what a lovely set of things to have said about your book by a reviewer like that.
Yeah, well, I've listened to Maureen Corrigan for years, as most people have on Fresh Air. She's the book critic on Fresh Air, and I listen to Fresh Air all the time. When I used to commute on the bus, I used to listen to it on a podcast. So Maureen Corrigan is this voice in my ear, like the voice of the book critic. And so I actually got an email from a high school friend saying, congratulations, I read your review in the Washington Post. And I didn't realize there was a review in the Washington Post. And I figured it was, a Washington Post reviewer, just somebody. And then I went to the Washington Post and I saw it and I was like, it's Maureen Corrigan. I just freaked out. I ran around my house like, Maureen Corrigan reviewed me. Maureen Corrigan reviewed me. And honestly, she could have just panned the book. But the fact that she even read the book was such an honor to me. So anyway, it was a thrill.
That's awesome. She did the opposite of panning the book. She was so nice. She was so flattering and complimentary about it.
I know.
So where on earth did the idea for this book full of such intriguing mystery come from? What's the inspiration here?
Yeah, so the story, kind of the long story, is that I had written a YA book 8 years ago. And like many aspiring authors, I tried to get an agent for it, sent out all those queries, got back all those no's or the, silences. And after like a year or so of that very frustrating process, I was sort of angry, and I said, I want to write a book that, it's a page turner that people can't put down, that'll be really juicy and hopefully will be, like very popular. And so I was thinking, like, what could I write? And at that time, I mean, this is sort of tragic. At that time, my sister-in-law had pled guilty to a white-collar crime. And so she had to serve time in Alderson Women's Prison. And it was around the same time that Orange is the New Black came out on TV. And people were so fascinated by women's prison. And I thought, wow, this could be the hook that I'm looking for. And the rest of the story just flowed from that.
Wow. And is there anything you had to cut? We always go through so many iterations from where we start to where we end. Is there anything readers might be surprised to know was originally in the book and didn't make it or changed a lot?
Yeah, so one of the feedback items I get is that, oh my gosh, this is such a look into the privileged, ultra privileged life, with all the designer names and Christian Louboutin shoes and Chanel jackets and all those things. And in fact, the earlier version of my manuscript had way more designer names. I mean, like every time there was a detail, it had a designer name right before it. And my editor and agent actually suggested that I take some of those out because it was just a little bit too much over the top. But then after that, Kevin Kwan came out with his Crazy Rich Asians, and he had so many brand names in there, and I didn't even recognize some of those brand names. They were so high class. And obviously that didn't hurt his book.
Well, I said that in my own review when I wrote it, that I think anyone who loved Crazy Rich Asians would adore this book. It's got so many similarities and how it kind of captures your attention and the prestige brands and some of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's some of it's kind of like wishful thinking on my part. I live in San Francisco, so I have a very small, like 1,400 square foot flat that I live in. And so, you know, I love to like imagine living in a huge estate with like a library and, you know, the wrapping room, which if you read the book, the wrapping room was like my favorite room. So it's a little bit of wish fulfillment. Yeah, I have a wrapping like, you know, container or store container.
So what about reading? Have you had any time to read recently? What have you been into reading?
Yeah, so in, let's see, in May, that was Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And so on my Instagram account, I try to highlight a different Asian American author every day. And so I actually bought most of those books. So I have this huge to be read pile. But 2 days before my own launch, I did a launch event for my friend, Lydia Kang, and read her book, Opium and Absinthe, which is phenomenal. I mean, I can see this being made into a movie. It's amazing. And then we've got the 2020 debuts group that you and I are a member of. And that again is such a great source for books. And so this is one that I would highly recommend by Kathleen West. Oh my gosh, if you love Big Little Lies or Where'd You Go, Bernadette? This is right up your alley. And then on my to be read pile, I'm super excited to read this one, which has gotten so many great reviews. I mean, this is like a masterpiece. Mine is a page turner, but this is a masterpiece. So you should see my pile next to my bed. It's like 3 piles that are 6 feet high.
Those are great choices. At least one of those is on my TBR right now for next week. So what about writing advice? What do you say to those earlier in their career?
So, you know, I know there are people who have wanted to be writers their whole lives. And I've always been a good reader, but I never thought I would be a writer because I just thought you had to have some kind of magic, like super talent. Like you had to be a ballerina, you know, you have to be like a special ballerina to appear on stage. And I felt like that about writing. And I realized that especially if you're a reader, you have an ear for writing. And so it's, you know, it's about just sitting down in front of your computer or on a piece of paper and getting your story down. So the 2 things I would recommend though are perseverance, because if I had stopped after all those rejections, and Lainey, you have a great piece about all the rejections you had before your book, and you just have to persevere and get through all those rejections and all those silences and have faith that at some point you'll break through. And then patience. I finished this book about 3 years ago. Obviously, I had to revise it through the editing process, but the publication process is a slow one and it takes a long time.
Good advice, good advice. And before we show readers where they can connect with you, anything I haven't asked that you want to mention or talk about?
I just want to say thank you to all the readers out there. It really does make a huge difference when you just send a nice note or put a post on Amazon or Goodreads and just, you know, either rate it or put a review on it. I actually read all of my reviews, even though people tell me not to. I can't help it. And I really do. Even the ones that are critical, I just appreciate that people take the time to share their feelings about it.
Let's show where people can connect with you here, because I know you're on Instagram and you love to talk to readers. They can connect with you. Here's your username, ahkim.writer on Instagram, and also at your website, ahkim.net. And that's amazing to hear that you read all of your reviews and that you love to get letters from readers. I'd encourage folks, you know, feel free to message Anne or send her a little email or connect with her here on Instagram. I'm sure she'd love to hear what you're thinking and how you've enjoyed the book. And that's awesome that you like to do that. You're brave to read all your reviews. I will tell you that.
Well, my agent actually told me, don't read all your reviews because, you know, you'll be disheartened. But, you know, right now it's still so early in the process. And I think I have like double-digit reviews. It's not like I have hundreds or thousands of reviews. But right now, it's just fun to know that there are people who are actually reading my words and you know, appreciating them.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations again on launch week, and the book's doing great. And thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Lainey. I really, really appreciate this. And thank you to everybody out there.